Hi, this is Hugh for Tone Twins TV. In this video I'm going to be showing you the restoration of a 1957 Fender Tweed Princeton, and at the end of it I'm going to be doing a little bit of a demo. This amp has come to us from our friends at Vintage and Rare Guitars in Bath, and it's from a Scottish collection and they're selling it on behalf of the owner. This amp would be museum grade quality if it wasn't for the fact that the owner's cat decided that it made an absolutely ideal scratching post, and it's done some damage to the tweed on the top of the cabinet. I mean, some people are really fussy about original tweed, so a decision has been made to leave that tweed on the cabinet, but if anybody wanted to change that at some point in the future, it's just one panel of tweed across the top that could easily be sprayed and reliced up to match the original tweed. Anyway, I'll be performing a thorough health check on this amplifier. I'll be measuring all the capacitors for leakage at full operating voltages and hopefully get this thing up and running for a few decades more. This piece of tweed here has actually just come unstuck, so the first thing I'm going to do is glue this down, and I can let the glue set while I'm working on the electronics. So before I do anything on this amp, I'm going to make sure that all the voltages are drained out. This is a little bit of asbestos that is stuck to the chassis, which is not particularly cool. I've got to get the speaker out as well to see what kind of condition the cone is in. Invariably there are splits in the paper cone with an original speaker if it's all original, so I'm going to have to address that. And the other thing is, although this has actually got a 3-prong plug installed, the wire itself looks absolutely ancient, and the insulation material itself is actually started to perish. So as well as being inconveniently short, I think the time has come to actually do this properly. I also noticed that typically with these 3-prong conversions that we've done a while back, the neutral is going to the fuse and then onto the power transformer, and the live is going to the switch and to the transformer, and ideally we're going to send the neutral straight to the power transformer, and the live line is going to go to the fuse, then to the switch, and then to the transformer. So I've got to change that around too. Okay, I'm just going to take this amplifier chassis out to the cabinet. With these tweeds, you just got a kind of a bolt and a nut at each end. Try and keep the nut pressed in tight as the nut is being undone, and then the chassis will just kind of sit on those bolts, and then you can just pull it out. Okay, it's had a couple of repairs already. It just looks like somebody's just put some wood glue over some splits, and the cone, there's a little bit has opened up at the edge of this glue patch. There's another little split just adjacent to this one, so and there's another one. So I've got to get this baffle out now, and all I'm going to do is just tap down on the top of it. We need a little there you go. Pretty inelegant really, but I'll get these bolts out too, and I'm going to mark this baffle so I know which way is up, so I can make sure it goes back in and all the screw holes line up. It's a bit of a Mensa puzzle getting this baffle out, but it comes out this way. Just make sure you retract the chassis bolt from the top of the cabinet, and it's come out nicely. Okay, so here's the loose tweed covering. This probably would have been put on with high glue originally. I need to glue this back down. I think I might use some fish glue. Just it's a similar type of animal protein glue. It's sort of original to the amplifier, and
Yeah, hide glue sticks pretty well to hide glue, so I presume fish glue will perform in a similar way. To glue this down, I'm just going to need something to distribute the clamping pressure, so I'm going to use this offcut of wood, and fish glue is extremely effective for gluing wood to wood. So the last thing I want to do is get this clamping core stuck to the chassis. So what I've done is just wrapped it in plastic packing tape, which fish glue won't stick to, and then once I've got this stuck down with some glue, just got it to grab slightly, I'll smooth it down, and then I'm just going to clamp it on just to hold that as the glue goes off. Fish slime sounds charming. Just going to put some on a brush to distribute it under the tweed as far as I can go. Word to the wise here, if your partner is artistic and has nice quality paintbrushes, best not to use them for this kind of job. It won't work out well for you. Okay, that all seems good. I'm just going to smooth that down now. Fish glue and hide glue has the kind of property of pulling together the pieces you're trying to stick together, which is kind of useful. Okay. Looking much better already. Right, I'll get some clamps on here now, and just leave that for a couple of hours. We should be good to go. The top of this chassis is really mucky, and I'm just going to give it a very gentle wipe down with just some kitchen paper, which has been very lightly dampened. The last thing I want to do is wear off the original writing, because it's all in such good condition. I'm just giving it a long overdue clean, basically. I'll just dry it off straight away. Don't be tempted to use anything that could potentially dissolve the lettering on this, which is probably silk screening and quite delicate. I'm not even pressing hard. Just let it clean up just really gently. Okay, that's about half of it done. Maybe you can see the contrast. So I'm just going to leave it there. I don't want to go over the top with this. It's just, there's still a little bit of dirt around the lamp holder and the switch and what have you. But it's just, there was just a kind of like an oily, greasy film over this, which would become impregnated with dust, and you couldn't really read the lettering at all. So it's just cleaner. I'm not going to get at this with any polish or anything like that, but I think that looks a lot better. Right, the first job here is to get rid of this mains wiring. Just 3 connections. The ground wire is attached to a solder tag down in this corner here, so I'm just basically going to snip this out for now and improve access to it, and then I'll get a new solder tag on there and make sure I've got a really good ground connection. Next thing is to try and get this cable retainer out of the chassis, which is often quite a difficult job. I have literally no idea how they managed to get that in. It was so tight. I ended up just sawing through it with a flush cut saw, which, you know, leaves the metal unscratched. But fortunately, I've got some new cable retainers that should fit this absolutely fine, and I'll get a new cable in there very shortly. So this is the new cable. The cable clip here. go. That's well and truly tight in there. I can't pull that through at all. Good. Okay, so I left some good length on the end so I can make these other connections. Okay, I'm going to use this proper socket to get this nut out, which isn't particularly tight. I said it before and I'll say it again, this is probably the most crucial connection in the amplifier. Make sure that you've got it grounded safely. Just popping on a little star washer now and just tighten this down. Okay, the next one to do is the neutral, which is basically going to hook onto the wire that's currently attached to the fuse. I'm just going to take the fuse out while I do this. Remove it very carefully because I don't want to destroy the original fuse holder. Okay, so the way the Americans do it, white is your neutral. Have to fish that bit of insulation out later. I tend to use 2 pieces of heat shrink for mains wiring like this. I've got this larger piece here and just a slightly smaller piece, just to be as safe as possible. I shrink the one bit of heat shrink over the other after I've done the solder joint, in the hope that it will make it as safe as possible. Obviously it's not ideal to have kind of loose wires like this. Okay, just going to let that cool down nicely before I get trying to slip that thinner piece of heat shrink over it. Otherwise it'll shrink as it's going past the solder joint and, well, you end up in a world of trouble. Yeah, it should be cool enough by now. Just going to shrink this down. Okay, that's looking good. The second piece over in a second. Right, let's get that across there like that. There we go. Okay, that's on there really tight now. I can just tuck that down by the chassis. Out of sight, out of mind. Just gonna make a little hook on this. Want it to be a mechanical connection as well as a solder joint. Okay. Next connection to be made is a little jumper across from the fuse holder to the power switch. Okay, that's the mains wiring completed. It's a little bit scruffy on the end, just snip off the excess. Right, the next thing to do before I can fire this up is to check that all these capacitors are non-leaky, and in order to do that I'm going to use my Heathkit capacitor tester. I'm going to lift the one leg of each of these and just check for leakage at the full operating voltage. Well, now I've got one end of each of the capacitors lifted, including the Austrons. I can get a really good look at the end of these electrolytics, and there's just a little blister on this one and a little blister on this one as well. This one looks good. Okay, this probably looks a little bit odd, but because I don't usually use this capacitor tester on its back like this. Just dialing it in. Yeah, this is just under 20 microfarads, so that's approximately 16, so it's okay value wise. And just looking at this magic eye light there, just looking for the maximum opening. There you go, that tells me where the capacitance is. Right, going to test it for leakage. See that it's wide open on the 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock positions, and if I turn this up now to test for leakage, it closes. Okay, I would expect it to close and then open to its fullest extent, and it doesn't. So that tells me that cap is probably leaky. Try the next one. Exactly the same story. Hope you've been able to pick this up on the little magic eye there. Okay, so this is the bit we're looking at, and when I switch this across to leak test, I want to see it close and then open to its fullest extent again. And it doesn't. That one's leaky too. Let's try these 25 microfarad ones as well. Leaky. And last one. Leaky. Alright, all the electrolytics are gone. Now it's time to test the Austrons. Well, I'm sorry to say that every single one of these capacitors in this amplifier is leaky and is going to have to be changed. Entirely predictable really, given that the amp is about 60 years old. These guys have done their job for a very long time. It's time to put them into retirement and replace them with capacitors that should be good for another few decades. The other thing I want to do is test these two resistors here. There's a 10k and a 22k, and they're the drop-in resistors in the power supply, and I just want to see if they're still kind of in the ballpark of their stated values. Okay, just going to get onto this first drop-in resistor, and it's reading 10.1k, so that one can stay in. Sorry if you can't see this very well, but I'm just measuring the resistors. And this one's 23.5k. Okay, both of those could stay in. I might change the 22k for something a little bit kind of beefier wattage wise, but I'll leave the first one in. There we go, a handful of capacitor tubes freshly stuffed and ready for reinstalling back in the amplifier. And the recap is complete, so all these stuffed electrolytics are back in, being careful with the positive and negative orientation, and the two Austrons have been replaced by a pair of Mallory 150s 0.022 microfarad rated at 630 volts. So that should be all working fine now, and what I've got to do is power this up very, very carefully, one valve at a time, through a current limiter, and hopefully this amplifier will now be running as it should. I checked the resistance of this great big resistor here, which should be 470 ohm, and it's actually 468, which I think is more than close enough. This is the bias resistor for the single 6v6 power tube, so fingers crossed it'll bias correctly as well. So it's all done, it's working, all the valves work. I'm happy with the way everything is sounding, so I'm just going to get this back in the cabinet and we'll see if that fish glue's done the job we wanted it to do. So I'll get the speaker baffle back inside, get the speaker mounted back up, and we can have a listen to what this sounds like.
Well, it all goes to show that just because an amplifier looks like it's in superb original condition doesn't mean to say that everything is going to be healthy and happy electronically. Yeah, it's a shame I had to change all the capacitors, but the resistors are by and large original, the output transformer, power transformer original, and quite frankly I would rather change the capacitors than risk blowing up the output tubes, the output transformer, or indeed myself. So hopefully this amplifier will be sounding good and reliable for many decades to come. The range of tones on offer is incredible, the smoothness of the overdrive is excellent, and it just interfaces superbly with pretty much any pickup you throw at it. A lot of people call the Fender Princeton Reverb the ultimate studio amp, and whilst I wouldn't disagree with that, I'd say it's equally true of its Tweed predecessor. So we're going to take this Cat Scratch Fever Tweed Princeton and do a little bit of a demo now. The Strat and the ES225 used in the demo are from pretty much the same year as the amplifier, and there are some pretty old pickups in the Telecaster too. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and see you again soon. Double.